When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. OBASEKI Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. OBASEKI Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
A very good evening to you there, and thanks for joining us again on your lovely program, Truth and Justice with Dr. Jennifer OBASEKI. I'm your host, Esther Olufumi. Today, we've got a very interesting guest in the house. We're dealing with a very interesting topic, and guess what? Our first 5 callers get free gifts from us today. Free gift. When you call in, just give us your name, give us your number. We'll get in touch with you and post you your gift. You want to know what the gift is? You don't touch the dark. Call friends and loved ones. Let them, join us tonight as we ride together on this lovely evening dealing with a very nice topic. Okay, Dr. Jennifer.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good to see you again on Truth and Justice.
Thank you.
What's the topic we're talking about today?
Now, today, with all this talk about Brexit and brand Britain, what's important is business must continue.
It has to.
Whether it's a hard Brexit or a soft
one.
Brexit, we have to continue. We've maintained that on this program. So today, with our wonderful guest, Mr. Mark Delgatti, we are actually going to talk about importing and exporting from the UK.
Wow.
So today we say calls make prizes. So if you have a question and it's a good question, we are going to give you some special prizes, compliments from Mr. Mark Delgatti himself. Now, the other thing is, first we said 3 callers will get them,
and then 5.
But Esther's being generous.
Very generous.
I don't want to be that generous. I want to also give special bounty to those who give the most interesting questions.
Okay.
So please, let's first of all welcome our guest, Mr. Mark Delgatti. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for being invited.
Who is Mark Delgatti?
Now, again, that was going to be the question I asked, but yes, who is Mr. Mark Delgatti?
Well, as I said, my name is Mark Delgatti. I'm the founder of Delgatti Teas, which is a company that manufactures herbal teas. Originally started from the Caribbean, and we supply teas into all the top supermarkets in the UK, Sainsbury's, Tesco, and about 3,000 independent ethnic grocers in the UK. And we also do some exports into Europe, North America, back to the Caribbean, and Asia and Africa.
Africa, I was waiting to hear that.
Yes. Now, how long have you been doing this now?
It's just about 20 years, 2 decades.
Just about 20 years.
Just about.
The way you say it, it's like it was, a few years
yesterday.
And now, what would you say has been your biggest hurdle in all these different countries that you've been moving into, or have there been a specific set of issues? So has there been one major hurdle, one major period of crisis, or a series of issues that you've had to deal with?
I would say it's a series of issues. I mean, what tends to happen is that in each challenge or every aspect that you want to grow, you'll find yourself getting a certain issue or certain issues. Normally tends to come across as the biggest issue that you're ever going to encounter. What happens, obviously, once you've conquered that issue and you move on to the next stage that you try to grow, there becomes another issue which you then begin to think is actually bigger than the last one that you had. Because once you've succeeded in the one that you had before, you don't think it was much of an issue after all until you encounter another issue.
New one.
So the higher it goes, the hotter it becomes.
Or is it more money, more problems?
I was actually going to ask him, why herbal tea?
Well, what we found about 20 years back is that most herbal teas that were sold in the UK or European market was using a lot of flavorings, and they weren't always natural products. They were also not very strong. What we found is that people coming from the Caribbean, African, and Indian subcontinent, I mean, if you make ginger, they want to taste the ginger. I mean, what Dalgety is known as making very strong, 100% natural products.
Wow.
I mean, you actually smell you walk along the shelves in the supermarket, you actually smell the product, you know, without even touching them. And that's the kind of strength that we sell. We sell a lot of strong flavored herbal teas that are 100% natural.
100% natural.
Do you want to talk us through, because we've got some on display here, just so that people have an idea that it's not just one or two varieties. So if you want to just talk.
Well, we could start, I mean, we have a lot what you call ginger blends, which are made up of a lot of ginger. We have like honey and ginger, lemon and ginger, peppermint and ginger, green tea with ginger.
Really strong.
Yeah.
Really strong. Whoa.
Then we move into what you could call exotic flavors, which is products that don't have or non-ginger blended teas, which is like lemongrass. Each one of them actually has various attributes or health attributes. Soursop is one of our latest development, which is very, very good for cancer.
Very good for anti-cancer
yes.
treatment, etc. This
Yes.
has been
Wow.
only
Yes.
recently, let me say, celebrated
Yes.
because of its qualities, its natural
Yes.
healing qualities.
Yes, and then
So it's good for cancer,
Yes.
this particular one.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And
it's actually one of our top.
100%
We only just said
natural.
it's becoming one of our top selling teas, and it's only been launched about a year or so back.
Wow.
And I mean that's pretty good for a new product.
And you
Normally
said it's
products-
selling in the top
it's
70s?
it's beginning to become one of our top selling teas at the moment.
Top
Selling
selling
teas in the
I
world
think
at
that
the moment.
you when you look at
Probably because of the issue with cancer at the
it's the
moment.
issue with cancer and the fact that it's only now being popularly talked about,
Yes.
and its qualities are proven. It's not something that's a rumor, etc.
Yes.
It's got proven
And it's 100%
qualities.
natural.
Yes.
Wow. First 5 callers today, you get to pick any.
And then we move into more what we call our super teas, which is moringa. Moringa's got many
Moringa's very
attributes
good
in
as well,
terms
yeah.
of like, I mean, 7 times the vitamin C of
Orange?
orange,
Yes.
vitamin D's. I mean, and it's all natural products. It's not anything that is being concocted. It's just a natural
chemicals.
products we take care in
Wow.
how we actually dry our products. I mean, I think normally what we say to people is that with Dalgety, we don't actually have one farm that has 1,000 acres. What we have is like 300-400 farmers with 1 acre. So the quality of the products that we have is like the guy looks after stuff as though it's his own baby. So it helps us to have a quality of product that's very potent and very strong the way it's done.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So let me move on to things like peppermint, chamomile, which is good for relaxation, green
Yes.
tea, everybody knows is good for antioxidants. And then we do instant teas such as instant lemon with honey, ginseng energizer, instant ginger, which comes as a normal tea bag, and also you have what you call a tea and pour sachet,
Okay.
right? So I mean, for hotels and places like that, yeah. So it's quite we have actually about 25 lines of teas that we actually do at the moment.
25 lines. I've
This
only
is
got
fantastic.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here.
Yes.
20 more. How has it been doing business in the UK?
Business in UK is great, definitely. I mean, the structure of the economy, I feel, is reasonably stable. I mean, considering that we do business in various global markets where it could be very challenging. I think UK is one of the better places, definitely, to do business in terms of the ease of doing business. Obviously, on the other end, probably from a competition point of view, it's more fierce in terms of competition because every major player in the world is trying to
Wants to
come
be here.
here or want to be in America. So in one way, it's good in ease. In another way, but it does teaches you to be a proper good business person, I would say also.
So you're learning on the job.
Yes.
Well, you've had 20 years of learning on the job, if you want to call it that. And what makes you come up with a new variety? Is it through sampling, through public sort of inquiries? What?
It's normally a combination of that. Mainly it's because of public inquiries. I mean, public inquiries and research. I mean, we tend to keep an eye on the market on what trends are occurring. It probably might take 3, 4 years, 5 years sometimes, just keeping an eye. And then when we think it's ready, then we begin to look for what you call a USP, a unique selling point within how we do our things. Because there's obviously a lot of big companies who are doing a lot of research on certain products. We don't have the finance to do that amount of research, so we just keep an eye and probably piggyback on some of the bigger things. But once they launch it, then we would understand it's something that, in many cases, that they're missing, and whatever they're missing is that's what we add to ours to make it that original, authentic brand.
You're right. You're right.
Yes.
Okay. Today we're dealing with import and export in the UK. And we're actually going to explore a bit on your experience on how easy it is to import and export goods from
And really give
and
advice
to
the people out
business
there.
owners.
There are many of you out there. Some of you contact me. You're doing business in Africa. You want to bring cashews. You want to bring meat even out of Africa into the UK. Some of you are asking questions. Those of you in the UK that have found a unique way to maybe make certain products are also thinking post-Brexit, am I going to have difficulties? What do I do? So we'll take a short break and then we're going to come back. And so get your questions ready. The number is there. Do call us.
And don't forget the first 5 callers today get to choose
presents.
any of these lovely products. Don't touch the dial. We'll be right back.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor. You look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. OBASEKI Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
Thanks for staying with us. The studio number to call this evening will be on the screen if you want to call in live quickly and, grab your product. Quick. The first 5 callers get to pick any of these products tonight. And seriously, my favorite is this one. They said I don't have cancer. I'm praying for those who are going through that challenge. That the Lord will help. But it has quality to fight cancer cells. So whether you have it or you don't, this is a good product to actually.
It has other benefits as well.
Lay your hands on. 100% natural. You want to ask her, I guess, something for
Yes. So what would you say when taking your goods out of the UK would be the top 3 major pieces of advice you would give to people? We know that depending on where you're going, there are certain rules. Depending on if you're moving your goods within the EU or outside. If you're in the EU, it's considered you're moving within free circulation. You don't have to charge VAT twice. There may be some local rules and regulations in the country or state you're going to. You also have to think about Switzerland, Iceland, and the Netherlands. So, Norway. So that they're not major countries in the EU, but they're not countries that are, what would you say, member states, but they are in the European Economic Area, and they've also signed up to these treaties. And March, we're not sure what's going to happen. As we know, Theresa May is still negotiating. So we've advised on this program in the past that maybe you might need to get some distribution partners if you're dealing with goods that are being retailed. You might have to have a second outlet, maybe have an office in Ireland, trying to make sure that you can also try to really not have a break within the distribution. So what I would like you to do is 2 things.
I think we've got caller.
We have
Hold on
caller.
for me quickly. Hello? It's not ringing out here. Hello, caller? Hello, how are you? Oh, we can't
we
hear
have a
on
little
set,
bit of a
but
technical issue.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can resolve that. Please don't.
We can't hear on set.
Please
but
try
we're
and
hearing
call
you.
back in while we
Yeah.
fix that. So again, so as not to break your distribution lines, you may need to have your plan B in case Theresa May's negotiations don't go so well. And really registering a company in Ireland or having distribution partners with on the main continent may not be such a hurdle, but the only thing is, I would say, don't leave it too late.
Don't leave it too late.
So please, let's just, I think they want us to take a break for a moment to see if we can quickly sort out the technical issues so we can take your calls.
Don't touch that. We're still here for you. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor. You look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. OBASEKI Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still dealing with import and export in the UK, and today we've got the business guru, Mr. Mark Daugherty, talking to us about how he's been doing business here in the UK. You've got a question for me, sir?
Yes, so you were going to give us some pointers. Those are people who want to export, take goods out of the UK that are going within the EU and beyond the EU. What few pointers would you give to them?
Well, the point I'll make is probably by stating what we did. And in export, we basically divide our export strategy into three formats, which is one we call the unstructured approach. Then there was what we call unstructured, and then there was the relationship approach, and then there was the structured approach. So I'll go through both of them, all three of them. The unstructured approach is simply, like going into America, for instance, was just speaking to friends, colleagues, researching basic research in the market, and just go over to America, walk with my products, ship it over there, and just hit the road and start selling. It's as simple as that. It's unstructured, but it gives you money right away. It will tell you right away whether the product is capable of receiving or not. Long term, it could be very expensive because you find yourself every 2 months going across to America, probably have to rent a vehicle. To me, what was very good about it was the fact that at least we saw there was a reception in the product, and I was getting back over here, probably with not a lot of profit, but not a loss. The relationship approach is based on, sometimes you might be trying to get into a particular market, and there might be a particular distributor that you've identified, but you don't know that distributor personally. But then you find somebody who actually knows the distributor personally or has a relationship with that particular distributor or importer. So instead of you going to try to approach that importer or distributor directly, which will be a long shot in terms of relationship, you find the person that you know knows that distributor, you get them to refer you. And sometimes it involves literally paying that person to introduce the products. We've actually done that also. We actually did it in America again also. There's a particular distributor that we wanted to approach, but instead of us going directly, we paid the person to present the product to the distributor, warmed up the seat. Then once it got very warm to hot, then we moved in as
that's a strategy.
Seriously, it is.
Third strategy is what we call structured approach, which is simply using what we call the Department of Trade and Investment, UKTI in the United Kingdom, which is probably one of the better ways of doing things, because there's something called the OMIS report, which is the Overseas Marketing Research Report, where if, for instance, you want to get into a particular market, you could speak to them and they would actually have someone on the ground. If, for instance, you selling, yams, for instance, and you said you want to sell yams in China, right? They would go and they would do a research and say, okay, you know what? China imports yam, 500 million tons. These are the people that buy it, and they would also help you to meet those people. You could go on what you call trade missions, which I've been on. I mean, my first trade missions was into Nigeria. I've been to Ghana. I've been to South Africa. I've actually been back into the Caribbean, the countries I already knew, with the trade mission, because when you go in that structured way, you go as part of a business group. You get doors open that normally would not open because you come in under British government contingency. The ambassador himself would probably invite all the business people to his home with yourself, and I mean, you got a red carpet treatment there basically, and deals could really be closed. But those are the three approaches we've used. I mean, no fixed one closes the door, but I mean, it's all about numbers, and it's all about doing and trying it all. Yes?
And never say never, because we did a UKTI trade mission visit to India many years ago. I didn't go personally, but the young person I sent from my office came back with 3 contracts. My mind was blown. They actually got this young boy face-to-face interviews with back office companies, and he came back with 3 contracts. So the UKTI works very hard to do the face-to-face introductions, making sure that when you want to go into a new territory, you meet the distributors, you meet the ambassador or other trades people in the same field as you. And there are even questionnaires they give you beforehand asking what people along the supply chain you want to meet, and then they pair you up. And so don't discount it. Look into your local chamber of commerce also. Look into the UKTI, and then you never know. Make a plan or have different strategies. So
don't forget tonight, our first 5 callers get to pick any of these products.
We've sorted out our technical issues, so
now
we can hear you once you call in. So
give us a call. Get
calls
your
make
gift.
prizes. So talking on the reverse now, exporting from the UK. What would you say are the 3 key things people need to be aware of? Importing into the UK. We've done importing. Bringing goods in.
Well, importing is pretty simple in the UK from my point of view. I mean, considering other countries I know when it comes to importation, I mean, you literally could import something and have it cleared within 1 day. Personally, I would always say to just get a broker, simply. I mean, my early days of importing, to save money, I literally found out all the tariffs and was filling all the forms out myself just to save some money. But then once I knew what I was doing, and I mean also I started trading and making a bit more money, we simply began to use a broker. But that is always the simplest way. I mean, it's always good to also, before you import something, to definitely understand the tariff and the duties or the VAT related to it, because then you need to do your costings correct. You don't want to land the product in the UK and then suddenly realize that your duty is 50%, and it costs you, I don't know, £10 to make this stuff on the market, to sell it for £5, and you totally, so it's important to do that research first to understand any duty or tariffs and the whole cost of importing, including the delivery once it's cleared, because some people also don't necessarily take that into consideration. So you have the clearance, the transport to where the product has to go to. Yeah, so you take the whole package in together, and basically, what was your uncle?
How expensive will you say that is? I was telling Jennifer this afternoon, I had to bring in, I went to Nigeria a few weeks ago, and I had to bring in food. So I paid like 50,000 naira in Nigeria to bring it in. And when I got here, I was told I would have to pay again here
for the transport
to get the bag cleared from where I'm picking up from.
Well, you have to, you see, when you're importing, you have to understand what negotiation you're making at the other end, because sometimes, I mean, you might buy something, for instance, in Nigeria or China, and they would quote you a price that would say CIF, which is carrier insurance and freight, landed in the UK. And many times what they actually do, they quote you that, but they reverse the charge right back over here. So you actually end up paying the freight charge 2 times. So, I mean, in our case, what we literally do, anything we buy from anyone, we actually say we want to buy X works. And I've got a broker here who picks it up anywhere, Madagascar, anywhere in the world, and he brings it, so I know what is my cost directly.
Wow. From the broker.
From where it's coming from, compared to telling them to freight it for you, because they would charge you, say they're charging the freight, and they don't actually, then it's reversed, so you actually pay the freight twice.
Interesting.
Yes.
And people who go into this green, it's very important, as you've just been told, you must know your import duty costs. You must know the cost of any VAT. You must know the fact that you're going to have these invoice payments. Very few things have a duty-free cost when they're being imported to the UK. Things like books, some software programs, but most other things either have a reduced tariff, a reduced cost, or a full cost. And as it's been explained to you, these costs, when you pay them in the UK, you pay in sterling. You pay in sterling. So you've got to have that calculation when you are purchasing these goods, bringing them in, adding your duties, adding your transportation costs. That's if you're doing it yourself, if you're not having the ability to use a broker to do these things for you. Got to be careful that you're not paying these double as you've just been warned. And knowing the tariff system inside out is very, very important as well. Again, if you don't know, then get to know. Don't find yourself in a position where you're paying penalties because you didn't know the classification of your goods, or you wrongly classified the goods. And again, don't be a novice. This is not the time for being a novice. It's a serious business. So you've got to do your research. If it's not the time right now, don't rush it and make a mistake, because the costs and penalties involved can be quite high.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, you did in tea, natural herbal tea. When you talk about natural tea, people want to think, especially women, is there any slimming tea there? Is there anything that helps me lose weight?
Oh yes, we have
Have you made that discovery?
Oh, we have done a slimming tea. So within our portfolio, if you visit our website, you'll see we also do a slimming tea called Slimline, all using natural ingredients again. I mean, to tell the truth, I'm not a herbalist as such. I mean, I'm motivated by, I actually come from a chemical engineer background. What I do, I look for products in the Caribbean, Africa, or wherever that we feel we could package and bring to the more modern world or advanced world, and package it in the right manner. So we've used certain natural ingredients that is associated with slimming, that literally is also flying off the shelves. It's actually called Dalgety Slim Line. I mean, it took me a long time. It took me a long. It took me a long time to do it. I mean, we literally that's one of the longest, because I just didn't want. I mean, we used to see a lot of slimming teas on the market, and what we found, a lot of them were really a marketing gimmick because they were false. So that particular tea took us about 8 years to develop, because I was just looking and looking and looking. And every time I went to Guyana, Caribbean, listening to the old folks, I mean, what they've been using, because you see, all these things are natural, and they've always been remedies for these things. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's just to identify the areas where they're growing, understand the plants and so forth, and literally what we do, that's how we do our research, and then we package it into a modern day situation. So you don't actually have to take the bush and boil it and blend it. It's all in one package for you on the move who's living in the UK or wherever.
Wow.
So what would you say has been your biggest success? Your biggest success?
Well,
20 years is a long time.
Well, that's probably a success in itself.
I know.
I mean, considering all the various hurdles, I mean, 20 years. In hindsight, I mean, it's only when people ask the question about how long you're in business, suddenly you realize that you've been in this for 20 years. Because sometimes normally I tend to think I only just started. You know, so that in itself, you know, I think the major success is just being able to take a product from you know, a third world country like the Caribbean and bringing it to somewhere in the United Kingdom and being successful. I mean, I always remember the first time I went to when I started the business, I was trying to get to overdraft and, you know, open the business, and the bank manager said, "Are you trying to sell tea to English people?" Like, you know, you're from the Caribbean. He said, "No, you don't sell us tea, we sell you tea." Yeah. Because obviously England is known for teas, you know what I mean? So, I mean, he said, "Anyway, best of luck, young man." And I don't know, well, I mean, I was lucky, or I mean, I did the right thing, but I mean, you should never feel that any product that you could bring from Africa or the Caribbean is ever going to be inferior. You could compete with anybody. It's as simple as that. And in many cases, the ironic thing is that even the European companies, many a times, they actually go to the Africas or the Caribbean, buy stuff, and use them over here, and then sell it back to Africa or so forth. So you can actually do it yourself. There's no reason for anybody to come from somewhere out of your country to go and take some product and then bring it back and sell it to you. Doesn't make sense, you know. And I mean, that's where our passion is really always about, looking for products across the Caribbean, Africa, that we could bring to these parts of the world. That is really what drives us more than anything else.
It's one of the reasons that I do salute you, and one of the things that you stressed on is quality. And do you think that people often don't really pay as much attention to that as they should.
Yes, that is true, especially if you're just operating in your local market. Because, I mean, I think that is why probably people coming from the likes of the Caribbean or Africa would tend to want to buy the foreign products, because many times the quality is actually the quality of the actual product itself, but the packaging is always supreme. And that packaging
Bling,
makes you
bling.
feel it's better. Right? And then the local guys have the stuff in a little plastic bag or a paper bag or something like that. He writes his name on top of it, and you're like, okay, you know something? That's not very good. You know, which is sometimes it's actually it's a better quality.
More
You know?
organic.
Yeah. So I mean, if you know people from those parts of the world could up their game in terms of packaging, I mean they'd be very
Marketing
successful.
PR,
Yes.
Interesting. So do you only do in tea? Any other?
Yeah, we do some non-tea products. We actually, funny enough, do a extra pepper sauce. We do something called noni juice, which is a health tonic. We do bitters also, something called power bitters, which is cleansing the blood for diabetes. Yes, so those are some of the non-tea products that we do. But we always tend to focus on our tea business because we focus on the core. I mean, normally what tends to happen is when you're trying to grow a business, you focus on your core. Once you get into a market with your core, then you say, by the way, we actually also do this. Because if you go with everything, I mean, it's too muddled, you see what I'm saying? So it keeps people focused on the success part of what you're doing. And then you then come in on the back end and you say, well, by the way, we also do this. Yes, instead of trying to say everything one time. Yeah.
Interesting.
So remember, callers, the lines are fixed now. So please do call in with your questions. Otherwise, I'm going to be taking all these lovely teas back to
No, you won't take them home.
Just to recap over some of the things we've said. So if you are exporting from the UK, you've got to remember, if you're exporting to outside the EU, then you've got to think about the local considerations, local requirements. You have to also think about whether you need a particular type of license. If you're dealing in certain products, you must have specific licenses such as agricultural products, medical devices, agricultural equipment, chemicals. If you're in the chemical industry, you might not even realize that what you're producing is considered a chemical elsewhere. So you've really got to think about it. Precious stones. And also, even there are some items that may be considered implements of torture. So that's also a thing. So things like handcuffs, restraints, these are things that may be banned where you've sent them to and may not even be allowed to be crossed in or cleared in. So doing this research is important. And then there are some countries that also have restrictions that the UK cannot actually have direct export dealings with. And some of these countries where there are restrictions include places like Burma, China, Armenia, even Eritrea, Lebanon, etc. So there are lists, and the best place for you to find all of this information regarding export is the .gov website. I would say take up your field, do your background research, go onto the .gov website, do some investigations. Then also, as mentioned by Mr. Dalgety, you've got to think about the UKTI, whether they would be able to give you some additional help. And also your local Chamber of Commerce. There's these trade missions that happen all year round. You may want to focus on certain emerging markets that are out there, and you don't want to be sort of just shot firing everywhere. You want to try and have a bit of a strategic approach to it. One may be formal or informal, as you've heard. So definitely set your dream into action and plan it out so that you can become a success story. Whether Brexit is hard or Brexit is soft, or it suits you or doesn't suit you, business must go on, and business must be successful. So this is a prime example here. And as the one thing I did want to ask you is, how do you view Brexit kind of affecting your business? Do you think it's going to affect it in any way,
we
shape,
don't
or
think
form?
about Brexit, Brexit or whatever.
Brexit,
we just keep going what we're doing. You know, I mean, the thing about there's always different policies, different things occur in the world. This happens, that happens. You just make sure that you're on the right track. Keep focused on what you're doing. Stay determined on what you're doing. And I mean, that's it. You know, don't get too involved with reading the whole book on Brexit or reading the whole book on not being Brexit or whatever it is. You know, we just focus on what we're doing. You know, and that's the way to do it as far as I'm concerned.
Now, you spoke about Africa, and Nigeria. I remember meeting you, I think it was last year, and the UKTI were at the embassy, and you also at the embassy. And would you say networking is also something that has to be done, even in the UK here? Networking in, you going to the Nigerian embassy, I know that I need to think about where I want my services to go, and think about going to meet their commercial teams in China, also the Indian embassy, Australia, that we're thinking, okay, and Canada, where we're thinking, okay, so how does one stay on top of this thing? How do you choose where to go? Because time is obviously limited.
No, well,
for
I mean,
a
it
person
depends on the
like you.
markets you're focused on. If you're focused on a particular market, then you begin to network within the circles of that particular market. Like, for instance, I mean, Nigeria is a good example for us, you know. I mean, obviously, we see Nigeria as, and the Ghana as one of the key areas as a company coming out from the Caribbean, you know. We are almost more interested in getting to those markets than even America, because we feel that it's on-top markets, and also some of the players that do teas in those markets, like the likes of Lipton, we sort of like rock them in the UK. So we feel when we went to Nigeria, for instance, we thought we were going to see a great Adi Ulu brand or something like that, and we then saw it was Lipton, and we were smiling from ear to ear, because we were like thinking, well, if we managed to beat them in the ethnic market in the UK, then I mean, we could squeeze this. We might not be able to beat them in the whole of Nigeria, but at least we could position ourselves, you know. But then you make sure you focus on what is going on in that country. I look at Nigerian news. I try to understand what's going on in Nigeria. Try to understand what's going on in Ghana, because those are markets that we're keen to get into. So I mean, once you know you're focused on a particular market, you look and understand the dynamics of what is going on at any point in time. I mean, whether it's change in the naira, whatever is going on, you just keep an eye on it.
Keeping abreast, making sure you're current with the markets that you want to be into, knowing what's happening, very, very important.
So do you have your product in Nigerian market as it is now, and in Ghana?
Well, it's in Ghana, steady Eddie. I mean, in the few big supermarkets. Nigeria, it's not in a proper official sense. I mean, what we do we have Nigerians coming from Germany, buy our products and take it over there. We actually not officially trying to get over NAFDAC. I mean, we went through various stages of various people saying that they're very interested, and I mean, that it didn't go through, which happens in business also. Now we decided we're probably going to just do it by ourselves and open an office over there. And yes.
Okay.
Now, what's next? You've talked about the other lines that you have. Where do you see your brand going in the next 5 years or so?
That's a good question. I mean, the thing about it, you have a vision, and sometimes it changes occasionally, but it gets you a bit confused sometimes, and you have to get back on track. I mean, just whack yourself back in place to say, well, you stay focused. Obviously, we were always focused on teas, but we're actually now thinking about diversifying into other food lines. I mean, whether it's spices and everything that really goes into Afro-Caribbean household. We strategically looking at it, because for each product you have to understand the USP you're going to use to enter the market. That is the unique selling point. So it's not about just looking and saying, okay, I want to do some more sauces, or I want to do some spices. You got to understand, like right now, okay, if I'm going to do spices, am I going to put salt in it? Am I going to reduce salt? Am I going to use sea salt instead? Because these are things that are affecting people looking at spices and a lot of products with regards to the salt content, because obviously it contributes to blood pressure. So those are the things we're looking at the moment, so that once we move into those different products, we understand the USP and the benefits that we could sell to make sure we position ourselves. Because obviously, when you develop a new product, you're going into the market as an underdog. Yeah. So and that probability of failing is extremely high. So you have to make sure you understand the angle that you're going to use to enter that market, really and truly. So that's what we're researching now and looking. But then at the same time, as I said, the core business we're looking at globalizing. At the end of the day, when we started Dalgety and we started the tea businesses to become a global tea brand. And that's where, as I said to you, sometimes you get a bit muddled, because our focus has always been from the beginning to become a global tea brand. And then at the same time, you see these opportunities with other products that you're seeing that are not being very well. And you're thinking, could I do it? Exactly.
I could do that better.
Yeah, and that's where you have to keep managing yourself, you know, because obviously you have to think of the resources you have available, you know, and so the resources you have available, and then decide how you're going to expand. I mean, you could either expand trying to use your own resources. We're now deciding whether we should sell equity stake in our brand and bring in some investors. And those are the things that we now begin to look at in a serious way. Where before we've actually grown our business by ourselves at every stage, reinvesting our own money. And now we begin to seriously consider looking at other options if you want to really become a few £100 million business.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the story of the man who developed Alibaba.
Oh, yeah.
And he did not take investment for the first few years. And then when he did, he actually went to do a presentation. And one of the richest men in Asia, his son was listening to this young man talk. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you 40 billion or something like that, 40 million. And he said, actually, I only need 20 at this stage. So, again, knowing how fast to run and what items to take and run with are so important when it comes down to planning on how to win the race. Because people do get a bit convoluted, confused, grow too quickly, not think about putting profits first, think about innovation. Innovation costs money to get right. And you did talk about your research and development, like the tea taking 8 years.
Yes.
And did you go into certain companies, pharmaceutical companies, when it comes down to testing and things like that? Or is it in-house people that you use?
It's always in-house. We always use in-house, and it's a lot to do in traveling, reading, traveling. For instance, everywhere I travel, it doesn't matter where I land. The first thing I do, I go to the supermarket, I go to health food shop, I go and see what tea, and I go and see what tea they're selling.
Check out the competition.
Just check see what the competition. I buy everybody else's tea. If I go anywhere and someone actually offers a cup of tea, I'm more, even if they have Dalgety teas there, I drink the other company's tea just to see what it's like. Because there's no sense shouting that you're the best if you're not understanding what anyone else is doing, you know? Yeah. So, you know,
so you even engage in the research and development.
Oh yeah, well that's part of it, definitely.
So having the in-house people can be expensive, as you know, if you're doing business, you'll know. But it's one of those things that you must be engaged in. If you have that passion and belief in your product, as you've just heard, you've got to see what the competition's saying, you've got to taste it, you've got to look at how it's packaged, you've got to see what it's retailing for, you've got to see who might be distributing it for them, retailing it for them. And as you just heard again, it's something that is a continuous thing. 8 years to develop a certain product is no easy task. Getting it just right, knowing what your competition is lacking, making sure your product then has what's the missing X factor, as you might want to call it, to make it get that one bit ahead on the aisles as jumping into people's baskets is what you want.
Exactly.
You know?
Some people don't like competition, you see.
Well, competition is healthy. It can be healthy. In my opinion, it can be very healthy. But making sure that you are relevant, you are at the top is what is important. That's the hard task. And anybody going into a new market, you know that predatory pricing is there, making sure that the brand awareness happens is there. So when you're talking about import and exporting, it's again, once you go into this new territory, who's going to know you? What do you do to make sure people do know you? And the supply chain is really my concern for certain industries. Hoping, again, touch wood, that Miss May and whether checkers or no checkers or Brexit or Brexon, did you say Brex out? What was it you said? Brex out. However it goes, it's so important that people within the Afro-Caribbean sphere remain informed and remain relevant. Whatever they are going to do, they're going to do. It's about your business staying on point and not being adversely affected. So having your plan A for a good Brexit and a plan B for an adverse hard Brexit is important so that your supply chains are not affected.
Okay. For our businessmen or women listening to us tonight who would want to export goods from the UK to other parts of the world, what's the process? Do they have to get the license? Do you have to register?
No, that's the nice thing about the UK. I mean, a lot of countries, normally when you try to export, you got to get a license, you got to line up in this line, that line, 5, 6, 7 different documents. In the UK, I mean, they understand that exporting is basically what drives the economy. That's what makes you rich. If you export more than you import, then your economy is doing great. So ideally, they make it easy. So all you literally need to do is have a business. Probably not. You could be a sole trader. And if you want to export something, I mean, you literally just, find a broker, and you just find a shipping company and ship it out like that. I mean, the brokers normally, the shipping company normally has a broker. They fill the form out, I don't know, 25 quid or something, and that's it.
Wow.
It's nothing about going anywhere to the government office and fill out 20 forms.
Wow.
Which in most other countries
Can be quite bureaucratic.
It's very bureaucratic.
Some
Not in
countries-
the UK.
Nigeria,
Not in
Nigeria
the
simpled it
UK.
down though. Even apparently tried to
Not in the
on
UK.
paper anyway.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's one of those
So it's why it's easy.
situations
Yes, yes.
where the UK at the moment is palatable for business. Post Brexit, we've heard they're going to make it even more. They're looking for trade deals. So this is where, if you do have connections in your country of origin, or you have a particular country that you're passionate about, then you might want to think, okay, post Brexit, Britain's going to be looking for trade deals, looking for brand Britain, how to promote it. So it might be worth reconnecting with your home country. And funny enough, there was a big debate on my Facebook wall recently about the president saying, you people living abroad, you should come home, come back to Nigeria and invest. It's not as bad as you think. Whereas realistically, it's a very lovely invitation, but the practicalities of that invitation also have to be thought about. So if you are thinking of making the connection with your country of origin or a country you're passionate about, where your ethnic roots lie, you've got to think about, am I doing this business out of passion, emotion, or for profit? Because you can have a connection with Africa, want to do business in Africa, but it might be easier to do business in a country that's not necessarily your country of origin. It may be easier, for example, to do business in Zambia because it's less bureaucratic than it is in Nigeria. And that's just an example I'm giving. So would you say to people, go with your passion or go with the profit when it comes down to
It's definitely you go with the profit. Passion gets you into a lot of trouble.
Exactly.
Wow.
And you have to change focus because, even as I always say to people, I think I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years and a businessman for 5. When you're an entrepreneur, you
That's
tend
a
to find...
very good
Yeah, there's a difference between the two. You see, when you're an entrepreneur, you're very good at developing products. You identify products you could sell. You do crazy stuff. And sometimes you're not necessarily looking at the maths. And then if you're not looking at the maths, that's how you end up going out of business, And then on the other hand, there's business guys out there who don't actually have no ideas, but they just look at the maths. They wait until somebody does something, copy it, and then they become very successful with no idea, all because they keep an eye on the maths. So even as if you're a business person or with the entrepreneurial instinct, it's important to keep an eye on the maths and understand what you're doing in the trade.
Keep on high on the mats.
Passion can get you into problems. Yes, you've got to focus on the profit. And it does get sometimes, let me say, diluted and mixed up, get caught up in the mix. And when you've gone into a place to actually make profit, do a business, you're not a charity. So it's about making sure that those numbers add up and actually add up and lead to profit. So people have got to be a little bit careful if you are thinking about going home. Make sure there is a plan. If the plan is not on track and your plan B is not working, you can try a different country where it might be easier. Some countries are laying out the red carpet for people. A good example is let me say the contrast between Ghana and Nigeria, and that's something that I've learned over this year is quite stark. I've seen a lot of business women, even from the east coast of Africa, setting up business in Ghana as a base. Why? Because it's been easier for them to do so. And that's quite interesting. And the Ghanaian government as well has made it easier at their airports, making it more streamlined for people to come in and out easier. Even though the security is well on point, it's just the fact that they've realised that having these, let's say, barriers to people coming in and out and doing business is not healthy. And to attract people who are coming in to invest and establish, they've decided to make it a lot more easier for people. So the business women that I've seen actually move from places like Kenya, Ethiopia to Ghana. I've been like, why? And they've been like, because it's right now a safe place to live, good place to have your operational base, easy to commute around the rest of the continent, and easy to come in and out of Europe. And I've been like, wow, actually, that is where you're thinking not about a passion, but about profit. And these are Asian Africans, African Africans, and even Caribbean women that have moved to Ghana to resettle. So I've been like, wow, that's an attraction. That's a government that's forward thinking. Now, if you were advising, and I know this is a very far-fetched and stretched question, but if you were advising, let's say a West African country, we might not want to say Nigeria, but we could say Nigeria. What would you say to them to make it more attractive to people who are wanting to bring their goods in, want to do business, or even want to look at their natural resources and say, look, I want to invest, and then also ultimately maybe take some of the good products out, some of your organic products help, what advice would you give? Maybe just top three.
Normally one of the best things if you're looking for inward investment is normally to create what you call trade-free zones. Trade-free zones normally encourage investment and people to go in, because automatically within the trade-free zone you say, okay, you want to set up a factory, we have a trade-free zone. Once you operate in the trade-free zone, you're going to be able to export your products out with no hassle, no red tape, no bureaucracy, right? That encourages people from foreign countries to go in there, knowing, and then automatically, right, you're creating employment for your workforce.
Exactly.
Yes, you're obviously going to benefit from the skills and everything that person brings in with you, right? And I mean, that is probably one of the best ways forward, in terms of setting up trade-free zones, and within that trade-free zone, ensure that that person that comes in has an ease of exporting out the goods.
So not just a trade-free zone, making sure there are offices there that will help with the ease of the export of the product.
Yes.
Also making sure that there's maybe support in growing that labor force, that local labor force, to transfer of skills. I think that it's something that we as Nigerians need to focus on. I know that there's been the talk of having some technical trade-free zones for the IT industry and a growth around Lagos and other places. But yes, having the establishment of some factories, some innovation houses, why not? Let's think about having trade-free zones across some of the states in the Federal Republic.
And also, I mean, the other thing that you have to look at when you set up these trade-free zones is literally build warehouses. Don't expect an investor to come and have to go and find bricks and zinc and infrastructure and build a road. He wants to just come with his machinery, put it in the warehouse, plug it in, and start working. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the investment has to go into, you set up a trade-free zone, set up a set of warehouses, industrial estates, like literally like what they have in the UK. Almost every single, even when they plant tongues to me over here, they always have an industrial area, an industrial estate somewhere that it would encourage business to come in and develop. So, yes.
So where are your tea outlets? Online?
Yeah, well, we're online. Tesco's in the World Food section, is not in the tea section, normally in the World Food section, in Sainsbury also. Online, www.dalgettiherbalteas.com, where we literally do mail orders. Even to Russia, and China, people we send mail orders to. Because we find a lot of times people come to the UK and they may find our products and they don't find when they get back to where they are. So we do mail orders.
Go online. You can get this delivered to you. Each one of them. And as you did not call in, people who email in will still get the teas. So you can email into Truth and Justice TV or go onto our Facebook page, ask your questions there, and we will also pass them on to Mr. Delgatti. And if it's a legal question for us, we can pass it on to our in-house experts at OBASEKI Solicitors. You can also email Esther at obasekisolicitors.com all your questions, and she'll be more than happy to help.
Definitely would be. Thank you so much for staying with us tonight on Truth and Justice, and we hope to come your way again next week with another very interesting episode of this program. Sorry for the technical itch we had initially, I guess.
With the telephone.
Yeah. Next week everything will be right. On spot. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on board tonight. We are very grateful. We are very grateful.
Greatly appreciate it.
So we'll see you same time.
Same time next week. There's some interesting topics. We're going to be talking about education. So if your children are having challenges in schools, we're going to have an expert in to talk to you about this. And we're going to talk about what you should be doing if you want your child to go to one of the top schools in the country. What's happening with the curriculums? You hear about the teachers' cuts and budget cuts. And then we're also going to have another business expert who I might raise some of these questions with. That should be Mr. Afolabi Andu, to talk about doing business in Nigeria, some of the hurdles. Mr. President says, come home.
Come home.
And so we're going to talk about the practicalities
Of
of actually going home and the things you really do need to consider. So thanks once again for joining us.
Get in touch with us, email us, go to our
Yes.
Facebook page, drop us a line, give us a call. Let's see how we can help you. Till we see you same time, same station next week. Be good.
Be good.
And
And
if
if
you
you can't
can-
be good, be careful.
Be careful.
I'm watching you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. OBASEKI Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we will be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com. When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. OBASEKI Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we will be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020-7739-7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.